The Terracotta Army was not just armed with clay. They held over 40,000 real, lethal bronze weapons that are still razor-sharp today. How did 2,000-year-old swords survive underground without rusting? We are diving into the incredible metallurgical secrets of the Qin dynasty's ancient military machine. The figures get all the attention. 8,000 soldiers, each with a different face, standing in silent formation beneath the fields near Xi'an in central China. But the soldiers are only the surface of the story. Scattered between their feet, lying in the dirt where they fell, archaeologists found something far more dangerous: a working arsenal. And when you understand the scale of it, the clay men start to look like an afterthought. So today, we are not here for the faces. We are here for the weapons. We are going to count them, take them apart, and ask the question almost nobody asks. Not who these soldiers were, but who armed them, and how. Because the answer turns the Terracotta Army from a tomb into something that looks unsettlingly like a factory. When farmers digging a well struck the first clay head in March of 1974, near the village of Xiyang in Lintong, they had broken into the largest weapons cache of the ancient world. The numbers are staggering. More than 40,000 bronze objects were pulled from the pits so far. There were swords, spears, lances, halberds, billhooks, crossbow triggers, and tens of thousands of arrowheads. Among them was the Ji, the Chinese halberd, a weapon that appears so frequently in the archaeological literature that it has become almost a signature of the Qin arsenal. This was not a display. It was an army equipped for war and then buried whole. Start with the swords, because they are the strangest. The bronze swords of the Terracotta Army are unusually long, many of them around 3 feet. That does not sound remarkable until you understand the metal. Bronze is harder than iron, but more brittle, and a long bronze blade tends to snap under stress. For centuries, swordsmiths across the ancient world kept their bronze swords short for exactly that reason, usually under 2 feet. The Qin smiths somehow pushed the length far past what the metal should allow, and the blades held. Some came out of the ground after 22 centuries, with edges that still caught the light. And that brings us to the question on everyone's mind, the one that has launched 1,000 documentaries. How is that possible? How does a bronze weapon sit in wet ground for 2,000 years and come out sharp when a steel knife left in a damp shed turns to rust in a single winter? For a long time, the popular answer was that the Qin had a secret, a special anti-rust coating on the metal, a piece of lost ancient technology that modern industry supposedly did not match until the 20th century. It is a thrilling idea. It is also a story that has come apart badly under modern scientific testing. Professor Marcos Martinon Torres and his team, whose 2019 research systematically dismantled the chromium coating legend, found the real explanation to be stranger and more interesting than the myth. We are going to come back to that mystery another day, in full, because it turns the secret coating legend completely upside down. For now, hold on to the short version, because it points us exactly where we need to go. The weapons did not survive because of magic. They survived because of 2 ordinary things working together. The bronze itself was deliberately mixed with a high proportion of tin, and high-tin bronze, a copper-tin alloy pushed toward the harder end of the compositional range, can form its own thin, protective skin as it ages, a sealed surface that slows corrosion to a crawl. And the ground they were buried in, the fine wind-blown loess of the Loess Plateau near Xi'an, happens to be mildly alkaline and gentle on metal, close to an ideal resting place for bronze, the right alloy in the right dirt. Not a lost super technology, just very good engineering and a lucky grave. But notice the word that keeps coming up. Deliberate. The tin was deliberate. The mixing was deliberate. And the moment you start looking at these weapons as deliberate, engineered objects rather than ancient curiosities, the real secret of the Terracotta Army finally comes into view. Because it was never hiding in the metal. It was hiding in the numbers. Go back to that figure. 40,000 weapons. Tens of thousands of arrowheads alone. Stop and think about what that actually requires. Not the skill to make one beautiful sword, but the capacity to make tens of thousands of deadly, consistent, interchangeable weapons, all to the same standard, for a single army. That is not the work of a master craftsman in a workshop. That is the work of an industry, and the arrowheads are where we can prove it. A scientific team studied these arrowheads in detail, and they did something clever. They read the precise chemical recipe of the bronze in arrowhead after arrowhead, thousands of them. Think of it as taking a fingerprint of the metal in each one, because the exact mix of copper, tin, and trace elements in a batch of bronze is like a signature of the furnace it came from. And a pattern jumped out that rewrote how we understand the whole operation. The arrowheads were found in bundles, roughly 100 in a bundle, the contents of a single quiver. And within any one bundle, the chemistry matched tightly. Every arrowhead in that group had come from the same melt of metal, poured at the same time. But from one bundle to the next, the chemistry shifted. Each group was its own little chemical island. Sit with what that means, because it is remarkable. This was not one enormous assembly line stamping out identical parts from a single vat of bronze. It was a network of small, independent workshop cells, each one melting its own metal, each one producing arrows in parallel, all of them feeding into the same imperial supply. A decentralized production system. Hundreds of small units working at once, coordinated toward one output, more than 2,000 years ago. This system did not appear from nowhere. Its roots stretched back more than a century before unification. A reformer named Xiang, chief minister of Qin during the Warring States period, had standardized weights, measurements, and tools across the kingdom, and crucially, established laws that held individual craftsmen accountable by name. Their marks are still found inscribed on the weapons in these pits. By the time Chancellor Lu Bue formalized the empire's production codes a generation later, Qin weapons were manufactured to such uniform standards that crossbow triggers from entirely separate workshops were fully interchangeable parts. The ideology driving all of it was legalism, the philosophy that placed the state's rational order above tradition and individual craft, and turned the workshop into an instrument of imperial policy. And here is the detail that should genuinely stop you. Across the arrowheads that were measured, the variation in their length and width was systematically tiny, held at under 5%. Think about that. Hundreds of separate workshops, no shared measuring machines, no calipers as we know them, no central conveyor belt forcing consistency. And they still hit a uniformity that a modern factory would be proud of. They even tuned the metal for the task, a harder, higher tin mix for the arrowhead that had to punch through armor, a tougher, lower tin mix for the parts that had to take stress without shattering. This was not folk craft. This was deliberate, distributed, quality-controlled manufacturing, spread across an entire empire and pointed at a single goal. That is the real weapon of the Terracotta Army. Not the sword, the system. Step back and look at what these pits actually represent. We came here asking how the blades stayed sharp, and that question, it turns out, was a distraction. The bright bronze is just the part you can hold. The thing that should really stop you is the organization standing behind it. A state that could coordinate hundreds of workshops, hold a tolerance under 5%, without modern tools, optimize an alloy for its purpose, and turn out 40,000 weapons consistent enough to be interchangeable. That is not a craft tradition. That is the machinery of mass production, running more than 2,000 years before we think mass production was invented. The popular story wanted these weapons to be a lost miracle of secret science. The truth is stranger and far more human. The science in the metal was ordinary, the right tin, the right soil. But the machine that produced it was extraordinary, an ancient state that had already learned how to turn thousands of separate human hands into a single, repeatable, industrial machine, and then buried the entire output in the dark to guard a dead king forever. The swords still catch the light after 2,000 years. But the next time you see one behind museum glass, look past the blade. The real weapon was never the bronze in your eye. It was the invisible machine that made 40,000 of them, all the same, in a world that supposedly could not yet do such a thing. The Terracotta Army was not just an army, it was proof of a factory that history forgot.